Assalamu alaikum dear students, and welcome to the 66th session of the KIF Distance Learning Program Current Affairs Newspaper Roundup session. I'm your host Shahrukh Haider, and we have some interesting development in South Asia. So only yesterday Pakistan and India shared with each other a list of their nuclear installments across the border. Now you might be surprised, because why would India and Pakistan let their arch rival know about their nuclear installments and where all of their nuclear weapons are deployed? We all know that Pakistan and India are rivals for 70 years. They have fought 4 wars, and especially India has been the belligerent nation, constantly trying to undo Pakistan, undermine Pakistan, internally destabilize Pakistan using its broad-ranging hybrid warfare and 5th generation warfare against Pakistan. So in that respect, the idea that these two countries will share a list of their nuclear installments with each other seems quite ludicrous, to be honest. But that means that some sanity did prevail between the leadership of Pakistan and India in 1988, when they signed an important agreement to ensure that despite reaching nuclearization, both countries do not take any undue actions against the nuclear installments in the other country. So the agreement was termed as Agreement on Prohibition of Attacks Against Nuclear Installments and Facilities between Pakistan and India. Now the primary reason why Pakistan and India let each other know where their nuclear installments are present is so that both of these countries, in the event of a war, do not attack each other's nuclear facilities, because such an attack would be very disastrous for the country, because it would be tantamount to dropping nuclear weapons on that country without even dropping them, because once you attack a nuclear installment, it would definitely go off and create a nuclear bomb. So it's a same thing to do to allow the other country as a confidence building measure, and that is one of the main reasons why, at least on the nuclear front, the cooperation between Pakistan and India has been surprising, despite fighting wars, despite it trying to internally destabilize each other, trying to start secessionist and separatist movements in each other's countries. Both countries, when it comes to the nuclear question, have remained sane and practical and rational. However, despite that, the ongoing nuclear arms race between Pakistan, India, and on India's side between India and China is a grave threat to the overall regional security. In this respect, I believe that since China feels threatened and insecure because of United States foreign policy towards this region and the emerging consensus in Washington that United States needs to contain the rise and the spread of China throughout Asia. Now, this American attitude towards the rise of China has been seen with quite some disdain and insecurity in Beijing, which is why in an attempt to secure their own interests, China has been for the last 10 years rapidly modernizing its army, increasing its capabilities, and creating more and more advanced nuclear weapons. So quite naturally, when China is militarizing at a rapid pace, India feels threatened and insecure, because India and China are traditional rivals, just as Pakistan and India are. They have already fought a war in 1962 which proved to be very detrimental and disastrous for India in particular. So in that respect, India's insecurity is directly translated then into Pakistan's insecurity, which is why it is important to see that the ongoing nuclear arms race could prove to be a huge strain on the economies of both Pakistan and India, which is something that you need to take in the context of the broader changing regional dynamics, because majority of the world powers are actually quite concerned about the emergence of this nuclear arms race between Pakistan and India, and they have tried their level best to diffuse the tensions, especially ever since the Pulwama suicide attack and the following Balakot attack incident. So the recent escalation between Pakistan and India calls for more measures to ensure that no accidents can lead to any kind of escalation that might turn into hot war, because the chances of hot war between Pakistan and India are too disastrous to even ponder on. With that respect, it is also important to look at the nuclear doctrines or the nuclear posturing of India and Pakistan respectively. As you know that Pakistan recently in 2016 revolutionized its nuclear doctrine by replacing it with a completely new form of ideology. So ever since 1998, when Pakistan conducted the Chagai 2 attacks and became a declared nuclear power, Pakistan's nuclear doctrine was limited deterrence, which means that Pakistan would only attack in the event of a nuclear attack on Pakistan, would only launch its nuclear weapons. However, in 2016, due to Indian belligerent attitude and fifth generation warfare against Pakistan, Pakistan developed tactical nuclear weapons and reshaped its nuclear doctrine from limited deterrence to full spectrum deterrence, where Pakistan said that if Pakistani significant territory is conquered or certain other national assets are seized by the Indian army, Pakistan would be the first one to use nuclear weapons, especially tactical nukes. So in response to that, in 2019, you might have heard that Modi, gave some very threatening and let's say irresponsible speeches to media and to his electorate about nuclear warfare between Pakistan and India. Moreover, the Indian army chief also said that India will not hesitate to use its nuclear weapons first. However, even though India's nuclear doctrine is no first use policy, but India is considering changing that, especially in the context of the emerging strategic competition between India and China. So it seems like, as far as nuclear politics is concerned, things are heating up in South Asia, and that is definitely not a good development, because Pakistan is already quite economically strained, and nuclear arms race is one of the most expensive and economically draining exercise of any country. Now, if you remember, perhaps you don't know, but if you remember, one of the main reasons for the fall of the USSR was internal economic failure, and one of the reasons for the internal economic failure was the massive and overwhelming nuclear arms race that the American president Ronald Reagan initiated against the Soviet Union, which the Soviet Union obviously had to follow up with and compete with, which is why the massive resources needed to build and compete in the arms race against the United States, the communist Russia lost its finances and eventually collapsed. Now, obviously Pakistan is not a communist state, and the internal collapse of Pakistan is unlikely, but still, with increasing economic pressure due to an arms race, a nuclear arms race, Pakistan's society could deteriorate further. Our human development indicators could dramatically drop. So in all this respect, I believe that the future is uncertain, but not a very bright future vis-a-vis India-Pakistan relations are concerned, because India's belligerent attitude is only exaggerating with every day, and India is becoming more and more aggressive and militaristic in its foreign policy, not just towards Pakistan, but to the broader region as well. In that respect, I believe Pakistan's immediate response is plausible and should be appreciated, because Pakistan has attempted to contain its war overtures and has tried to maintain strategic stability in South Asia without compromising Pakistan's soft diplomacy, soft stance, and Pakistan's willingness to engage diplomatically and politically with India. So let's see what the future holds, at least as long as the BJP-led fascist Hindutva ideology inspired government is present in India. There are no hopes of any peaceful process, any engagement between Pakistan and India. But we don't know when things can change, because they often do when we least expect them. Thank you very much for your patience. Allah Hafiz.